Clearly, this is a history-making day, especially where you are, because New York has been on pins and needles waiting for this to happen, and now it has.
It has, and I'll be interested to see what the scene really ends up looking like downtown, because right outside of the courthouse, security was moved every single day. It was a different level of security. You could hear as the commotion around the courthouse got bigger, there would be more officers outside, more barricades outside. We never saw the level of protesting that I think that the NYPD had prepared for. There was concerns, especially that first Monday after the president posted that he was going to be arrested. There was a lot of expectation there was going to be protests, and really the most was about a dozen people there. But for the last about 2 weeks, we really have been waiting to see if this indictment was going to happen. I want to note, even though we had heard over the last couple days that they were going to wait until mid-April to resume their testimony, the grand jury actually has a deadline of tomorrow. So this makes sense when you look at the way that the grand jury operates. Grand juries are impaneled for only a certain amount of time. People only are able to give their personal time for so long. So they bring them in, they give them a host of cases, and then they dismiss them, bring in a new grand jury. And so they were butting up against this deadline of April 1st. This grand jury was going to have to either go to a judge and ask for an extension, or they were going to have to impanel an entirely new grand jury and start from the very beginning with them. And so neither of those options are really great options for Alvin Bragg. And so this actually, the timing on this, we were thinking that this is when it was going to be until earlier this week when all the commotion started, that they were going to take the rest of the week off and next week. And so just goes to show that the grand jury really does operate to a degree in secrecy, and all the efforts that we make to try to figure out what is going on inside of there. Alvin Bragg really kept quiet. The only information we really got from him throughout this entire process was about making sure that there was safety and security for the people inside the courthouse, when there were threats being emailed and phoned in, and threatening letters, including a white substance last Friday. That's really the only real information that we've seen come out of the district attorney's office. He has been incredibly quiet throughout this entire process.
Hey, Alex, I want you to describe what you're not seeing. We're so used to describing what we see, but in this case, the security outside the Manhattan courthouse, there are no spontaneous crowds. And I bring this up from historic perspective. When Marion Barry was arrested, that night, within minutes, thousands of people in Washington, D.C. had spilled into the streets. The night that Joe Biden was confirmed as the president, that afternoon when he was confirmed as the president, people spontaneously spilled out into the streets. When he said he was going to be indicted on that Tuesday, he called for protest. Would you describe for our audience what didn't happen in New York City? Because he wanted people to go and take back our country, I believe was the way that he phrased it. That didn't happen.
And even just this past year, I should say, when the Dobbs decision came down, we were in Washington Square Park, all around the whole city. I mean, there were tens of thousands of people there protesting that decision. You have to remember, we are in a very blue city here, so that obviously plays into it. But what we did not see last week was really any protesting at all. The individual people that were there, which I wouldn't say was more than a dozen or so throughout the course of the week, they, come by. A couple of them were wearing costumes and things of that nature, carrying signs, but there wasn't a scheduled protest in the way that we have seen with so many other topics around the country. There was one protest originally scheduled for Monday evening after that first Monday after he had announced that he was arrested about a week ago, and it was supposed to be from the New York Young Republicans Club, and only about a dozen people showed up, and it dispersed within a couple of minutes. And so I think that just goes to show the lack of support that he frankly has in this area. And so, that part of the reason that's why we know he left New York. I think that this could be, you were talking a little bit about venue. That might be a discussion that his lawyers are having about getting a fair trial, and would he be able to do that here? How do you begin to pick a jury that is going, obviously everybody knows who he is and has likely heard of these hush money payments. But, going through that further, how will they be able to pick this jury to make sure that it's an unbiased one? I think if the reflection is here, there's a lot of work for them to do.